So you said that Dr. Oziel told you everything about his session with Eric and Lyle. Was he in the habit of sharing his patients' confidences?
Yeah, sure. I was his lover. He told me what his sex therapy patients were into, especially the ladies. He wanted a threesome.
Judge, please tell her to stop flashing her impressive bosom at you.
Okay. I want to say that I have limited control over my words and actions right now. Jerry Oziel is using mind control on me. He's out in the hallway using special words.
No more questions.
Hey!
Hey!
Thanks so much for coming back. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me here. It's fun.
Let's talk about Law and Order True Crime, the Menendez Murders, and Judalon Smyth, this strange bird that you get to play. They approached you to be in the show. What did you know about her? What did you remember of the trial and her part of it?
I didn't know anything about her. I remember the trial. I remember that these two kids killed their parents, and I learned everything about the case, which was really interesting. And it's really like real life is stranger than fiction.
Yeah, and it's also one of those weird cases because it took place in LA. It was sort of around the Hollywood community, but not necessarily like a huge part of it. So there was this sort of endless fascination with this case, right? And she definitely played a part in that.
I think that people didn't understand how this family that looked so perfect on the surface, like they were rich and the dad was very successful and the mother was beautiful and the two young boys were these handsome young boys, and then underneath that surface they were this really horribly dysfunctional family.
Yeah, and what part did Judalon Smyth play in the whole thing?
Basically, Eric confessed to his therapist that he had killed his parents, and the therapist had a mistress, that is Judalon Smyth, and when their relationship broke up, she went to the police and told the police that there were taped confessions of the Menendez boys confessing to the murder. So that made it really impossible for them to get off. That's one of the main reasons why they got convicted.
And the defense, though, tried really hard to discredit her, and in many ways she was somewhat easy to discredit with the exception of the fact that she had these tapes, right?
She had this very tumultuous affair with their therapist, Jerry Oziel, and it was...
Was he her therapist as well, or was she...
It was their therapist.
Their
but
therapist.
They had a sort of very strange relationship, which they don't completely go into in the TV show, but he started counseling her and giving her drugs, and then it turned into this pretty abusive relationship where he was telling her he would have her committed to a mental institution, and he put her on all these drugs, and then she was living in the maid's room of his house with his family. This is in the show, but basically he tells his wife, like, she's a patient, we need to let her live at the house, but basically he was having an affair with her, and she was living in the maid's room while his family and his kids were living in the rest of the house.
And one of the sort of fascinating dynamics for her is that she is telling the truth. She is trying to speak out, but because of who she is in the relationship with this guy, she's being discredited all the way through by the media, by sort of two female defense attorneys as well. Mm-hmm. There is a kind of parallel there in terms of how we treat certain issues now when it comes to people speaking out. How did you feel about that sort of talking about with this character? I mean, just in that clip alone.
Leslie Abramson, that's the Edie Falco character, she was a really excellent lawyer, and she got a lot of people off. A lot of murderers didn't get convicted because of her. She's a really amazing lawyer. So yes, they wanted to discredit any witnesses that were against the brothers.
That's her job.
And as well, I think my character was driven crazy by her relationship with their therapist. So she was in a different state of mind. He did, she says the thing that, he's controlling my mind using special words. When I first read the script, I thought it was kind of funny. Like, I thought it sounded crazy, but when I researched it, it's really true that she taped a lot of their conversations, and he would use these special words to try to control her. And I know it sounds really, and
he would use
triggers, and she did a whole Diane Sawyer piece where she exposed him as abusing these other women that he had relationships with.
Right, and the doctor's played by Josh Charles, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did you get to do some work with Josh Charles and work with him at all?
Yeah, all of our scenes are together, and he's great. He's really fun to work with.
Yeah. Wait, so these tapes that you heard, where you heard these actual words, was that part of the Diane Sawyer interview? Are they on YouTube?
This was
Like,
all
how did you hear them?
research. I mean, it's partially in the show, but they don't really go into it. But yeah, they did this Diane Sawyer piece. Well, Judalon is one of the main witnesses in the Diane Sawyer piece about the Menendez brothers.
She was the key witness for the
She
most
was the
part
key
in the
witness.
trial.
And then later, the therapist, Jerry Oziel, became one of the key witnesses as well. But then she also did an expose on Jerry Oziel. So she got to know Diane Sawyer, and she told him, this guy is really abusing his power as a therapist. He was really, I mean, he went to the funeral of their parents and charged the brothers like $1,400 or something. I can't remember the exact number in the script, but he was offering his condolences and he charged them these huge fees. But so she did an expose on him and how he was really not a good guy.
And Judalon Smyth, she's still with us, right?
Yes.
Did you?
Yeah, no,
try to-
everyone is still alive except for the parents. They are not.
Did you try to meet with her or talk to her or anything
No,
like that?
I didn't. They didn't really want us to meet the real people. We weren't really allowed. Yeah.
Why do you think that? Why do you think that is?
I think, legal reasons. They don't. I mean, we're telling a true story, but at the same point, it's the writer's version of what happened. So it's not 100%, it's their point of view of what happened. So maybe some of these people would not like how they're being portrayed.
Do you worry about that with portraying someone who's still living, who sort of went through this
I
ordeal
do,
as well?
because I feel like when I researched her, I really wanted to do right by her, and at the same point, my job is to fulfill what the writers wrote. So it's not my job is not to only try to be exactly what I think she is. It's to play the role the writers wrote. Yeah.
I want to talk about this other thing that you have going on right now. You've just finished directing your first movie. You directed it. Whose script was it? Was it your script as well?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You wrote and directed this movie.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah, it was so fun.
That's
It's really fun.
When did you decide that you wanted to be a director?
Well, to be honest, I was a bit frustrated, sort of about sexism in the business, which has been a big news story lately. But being, a woman in the business and sexism and sexual harassment, and I wrote a script it's also about relationships and being a woman and sexuality. So I wrote this script as just my way to make myself laugh about things that were upsetting me, and then it turned into a movie, and it's coming out in February.
That's so cool. What's it called?
It's called Half Magic.
Half Magic. Can I ask? Can we talk about what it's about a
Sure.
little bit?
Yeah, I'd love to.
What the storyline is?
Yeah. Well, it's about three women and their friendship, and it's a sex comedy, but it's also kind of a female empowerment movie, and I think it's a satire of the movie business and sexism in the movie business. And there's also a plot about how when I was a kid, I grew up pretty religious, and I was told I was going to go to hell if I had premarital sex. So it's kind of about how can you get taught that as a kid, and as you get older, how can you feel good about your sexuality?
You were taught that as a kid?
Yeah.
When did you decide to become an actress? Because you started acting fairly young, right?
I started acting when I was in high school. I always loved doing it. So I was in the plays when I was 9, 10, 11 years old.
And then, because the first movie that I ever saw
But I
you
didn't
in,
professionally work until I was 16, 17.
License to Drive.
Yes.
Right.
That's
Which
awesome. You remember that.
Yeah, that was like one of my favorite movies when I was 8 years old.
That's
For some
so
reason, I thought that
cool.
movie was like the coolest thing in the world. I thought the Coreys were really, really cool.
I just saw Corey Feldman the other day. He's an animal rights activist. I ran into him at the screening of the Jane Goodall movie.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Did he perform?
No, no. But he was with his wife, and I got to say hi to him. I hadn't seen him in so long.
Had you not? You'd seen him since License to Drive.
Not a lot. No, but it was so fun getting to be in that movie as a teenager. That was my first movie.
So you decide to write, or you start writing the script Half Magic. Did you initially set out to write something about sexism in the movie business, or was that sort of, it just kind of came out of you?
Well, I had been working on developing projects, and I had this project about the Triangle Factory fire, and I was trying to get it made, and everyone was like, no one cares about women's stories. We don't want to see it.
I remember last time, we talked about the Triangle Factory fire.
Yeah, no, I tried for so long. And then it was also about relationships. I went through a breakup and I was sad, and I just thought, I want to laugh about the things that comedy is tragedy plus time equals comedy. So I went through a breakup and I was trying to laugh at the stupid dating mistakes I had made or laugh at myself. And so I started writing it about relationships, and then I put it in a backdrop of the Hollywood of the business and just laughing at how sexist it is, basically.
And when you talk about the sexism of the business, there are many layers or versions of sexism within the
Yeah.
business. Are you sort of referring to the sort of institutional sexism that lies behind telling women's stories, like the Triangle Fire?
Well, there's many different levels. One is just greenlighting movies about women, and telling women's stories. Another one is sexual harassment in the business, how much people get paid, the opportunities you have, how many women there are on power in Hollywood. The percentage of female directors is 7% the last time I looked, which is very low. Out of 100% of directors in Hollywood, there's 7% female directors.
And was that something that you noticed early on when you started as an actress in Hollywood? I don't want to say in Hollywood, in the business, making movies. So there are different versions of like who makes movies. It's not all Hollywood.
Well, I think as a kid, you just accept it. You go, oh, all men are in power. I guess men are more powerful than women. You just try to please men. And at a certain point, you go, why is it all men in power? Why can't there be more women in power? And then as you grow up, you go, I want to do those things. I want to be able to direct. I want to produce something. And then you push at the boundaries and go, is the world changing enough that there's space for me to do this?
How did you create space for you to do it outside of writing it? How did you get financing? How did you go through the whole process and convince people that you could do it?
Finding independent financing. Our financier is this guy named Bill Scheinberg, and he's really amazing. And he's feminist. Him and his wife are both really cool.
His name sounds very familiar.
Yeah, his dad was a studio head of Universal, Sid
Okay.
Sheinberg, and his mom is an actress. She was in Jaws. She's an amazing actress and a super feminist. And they were super into the idea of the story, and they're just loving, amazing people and really supportive, and they made it happen.
That's so cool. And what was the biggest thing, the thing that you were most nervous about going into you directing your first movie?
Just that I would suck at it.
Well, you've worked with literally two of my favorite directors, Gus Van Sant and Paul Thomas Anderson, two of
Yeah,
the
I
greatest
know.
working filmmakers. So I'd imagine there's a lot that you can learn, and then there's also a lot that you can kind of be like, whoa.
Yeah, it's nerve-wracking. I mean, working with these amazing people, but one of the things I think that those great directors have is they're very passionate about what they're doing. And I do think, like, being in the business for so many years, that I have learned it just through osmosis of being on sets. And so it was really fun to do it, yeah.
When you got behind the camera and you started working with your DP, was there one thing that you wanted to do with the camera more than anything else that you've ever seen or wanted to do?
I wanted to move it a lot. Like David O. Russell moves his camera a lot. I mean, Paul Thomas
whipping it
Anderson
around.
does that too, but and Steven Spielberg does that. I just watched a documentary on him, but the way the camera makes you feel what the character's feeling by always being in motion. So we did a lot of handheld stuff. And I watched that movie Silver Linings Playbook because he moved the camera so much in that movie. So I wanted
his whole thing that I've heard is that he's got his little monitor in his hands, like his wireless monitor, and he's got like cameras going, and he's literally going, whip it right, go left, go right, keep going, get in their face. And actors have to be like, you need to give me a minute and like move back into this, you know?
He sounds amazing. I mean, we did a total camera, like, you know what he does? You go around the people. We did a shot like that. That was really fun. We put a camera on a dolly and went around and around.
Oh, that's
That
so
was
cool.
fun.
Who are
Yeah.
your three female leads?
Well, there's me, Angela Kinsey, and Stephanie Beatrice.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So you're the lead and you're directing the film. Nerve-wracking? Was that tough?
Well, you know, Woody Allen does it, you know, telling a story. Yeah, it was fun. And, you know, there's a lot of women now doing this, or more women are starting to do this. So it's fun. I want to be part of that group.
That's so cool. Congratulations. I can't wait to
Thank
see
you.
it. It's gonna come
Yeah.
out sometime
Well,
next
it's coming
year.
out in February. Maybe you can have me back then. We can
I
talk
hope
about
so.
it more.
We will
Yeah.
have this exact same conversation, but with me having
But
seen
better.
the movie.
No.
Yeah, so it'll be
Okay.
absolutely
All right.
better.
Thank you.
Let's get some questions from the audience. Who has a question?
Hi. How are you? So in the show in Law and Order, like the clip was with you in the trial or in a court. Is it hard to make that interesting? Like some of the dialogue can maybe sometimes be dry.
Well, my character was very wacky. So my dialogue was more colorful, I think. Some of it is more procedural, but my character was a little more wild. So I had fun with that.
Yeah, you get to sort of go into a dry place and present the hypnosis.
I think
idea.
I'm more of like the fish out of water where people are like, what did she just say? You know, they can't believe it.
Next question. Oh, hi, right here. This question.
Hi there.
Hi.
I know that you're involved with Children International, and you're really involved with the Cambodian victims of sex trafficking. And I was wondering, what got you involved in that as an activist and so many other organizations, and how are you still able to balance your career in acting and be such a great activist and example to us all?
Wow, thank you for saying that. Well, I met this guy, Scott Neeson, and he started the Cambodian Children's Fund, and I visited it, and then I became obsessed with the organization. And I had been sponsoring a Kid with Children International before that, but being there in Cambodia and seeing what he was doing was so inspiring, and I started sponsoring kids, which I sponsor 5 kids, and they email me. He has a great system where you feel like you can really have a lot of contact with the kids that you're sponsoring, and so it's just great to be a part of his organization. It's really amazing. I think actually they're making a movie about his story that Scott Hicks is going to direct, so I'm excited about that, yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. I think we have time for one more question.
Hi, thank you for being here. So I was wondering, do you have a preference of playing characters, real-life characters, or something that's more made up? And is there a challenge of playing someone who's real?
It's fun to do research when someone's real. You can really look at them and study them and wonder why they did what they did. And in this, they had a lot of research. They had TV interviews I could watch. They had love poetry that my character wrote to Jerry Oziel. They had the poem he wrote to me. My character actually tape recorded a lot of our phone conversations. And I wore a wire and tape recorded a lot of, so I could listen to all of our conversations, which was super interesting. But anyway, I'm just glad to have work. I'll be a real person and not a real person. I don't care.
Do you ever find that having all of those things can sometimes hinder your ability to do a performance because you get sort of caught up in trying to be like them rather than find your own version of that character?
Well, for example, in this, like, in some ways, I think they make fun of the character of Judalon on the show, whereas when you are playing the character, you kind of really start to want to support your character, and you want to really believe in what your character's doing, and you don't want to judge it. So
yeah, you don't want to make fun of her as the
no,
actress.
you want to just be like, I understand she's doing this for this reason. So you want to just be pure, like, to represent your character in a pure way.
That's also really hard for a director in that situation because the director could kind of be like, I need you to play a little more jokey, and you're like,
I wanted it to be funny just because I enjoy laughing and humor, so I did want it to be funny, but I just wanted, I feel like, what she did was brave. She was afraid of being killed. The Jerry Oziel was telling her that they were going to kill her, and she went to the police out of, I think, fear that she'd be killed. So I think it's very brave in a lot of ways that she went to the police.
Yeah. You've had an amazing amount of characters that you've played over the course of your career, like really incredible characters. Some of them are very iconic. Do you have a favorite at this point that you hold on to?
It was really fun working with Paul Thomas Anderson on Boogie Nights, Yeah. Creatively, it was really fun. But, there's so many fun things. I just got to look at this. I went to the San Diego Film Festival, and they did this reel of different movies I'd been in. It was really cool to see, like, I work with Steve Martin. That's so cool, and all the different movies I've done in my life.
Because I bet you kind of forget because you're moving
you
forward.
You do.
And
You're just like, what's new? What's next? But then you look back and you go, I'm really lucky that I ever got a
Corys.
job.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, it's true. I feel lucky I got to work with the Coreys. I'm just grateful that I continue working as an actress. Every day I just want to remember to have gratitude that I get to work in this business. It's pretty amazing.
What was it like? You said working with Paul Thomas Anderson on Boogie Nights, but what was it like? No actor ever has anything bad to say about working with Paul Thomas Anderson. Why is that? What are his sets like?
Well, I think when you're working with him, he's just super passionate about what he's doing, and he infuses you with that passion and makes you feel like you're really special. Yeah.
Oh, so that's you feel special.
Yeah. You feel like, I am amazing, He's going like, you're amazing, and you're like, I am amazing.
Well, then you also get to see the movie when it's done, and the movie's amazing.
Yeah.
And, people have held on to... Nobody watches Boogie Nights ever, it's like been 20 years since the movie was made, and says anything like, oh, that doesn't hold up. People watch Boogie Nights in 40 years and still be really blown away by it. Yeah.
Cool. I can't really take credit for that, but I'm glad I'm in it. Yeah.
Well, you're a roller girl. I think people hold on to that character a lot,
Yeah.
Well, I love your work. I can't wait to see your film Half Magic when it comes out in February.
Yeah, thanks for talking about it.
The Menendez Murders is on NBC.
Yeah.
Is it Tuesday night?
Tuesday nights at 10 p.m.
Tuesday
There's
nights?
8 episodes.
There's 8 episodes.
And it gets more and more disturbing as you go along.
Well, it's the Menendez Murders, I would imagine
know.
they do.
Yeah.
Guys, Heather Graham. Give it up for Heather Graham, everybody.